Are we still stuck at just commemorating our fallen heroes and the march past, all the glitz and glamour that you find that happens at this day, that comes with this day and all? Or have we actually moved to making proactive measures to cater to the families of these heroes and those that we are honoring?
The things are not in military fiat. I expect that because the executive is taking actions to enhancing the welfare of the veterans in this country, I expect our representatives in the National Assembly, just like I made a case of Senator Ben Bruce. He took the gauntlet and he said the military man, the police officer, the paramilitary that die in the line of duty must be respected. And those that have retired and have helped to build this nation must equally be seriously respected.
Now, in the words of Barack Hussein Obama II, he was an American politician who served as the 44th president of the United States from 2009 to 2017. He once said, "Our nation owes a debt to its fallen heroes that we can never fully repay." Okay. Absolutely spot on. Our next one is from Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was an American politician and attorney who served as the 32nd president of the United States from 1933 until his death in 1945. He once said, "Those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them." Okay, our next quote is from Mark Twain, an American writer, humorist, entrepreneur, publisher, and lecturer, who once said, "Patriotism is supporting your country all the time and your government when it deserves it." Okay, now there's this particular poem that touched me. Let me read it out to you. It says, "We laid in the bush while you laid on your beds. We sleep beside our guns while you sleep beside your wives. You sleep in your house while we sleep in the hemis. You wear nice caps while we wear heavy helmets. You wear designer vest while we wear iron vest. In the morning, you are awoken by sweet alarm tones while we were woken up by horrible sounds of bombs and grenade. You moved around town in Range Rovers and latest cars, but we move in tanks and buffaloes. We stay awake just for you to sleep. We kill for you to live. We stand side by side with death itself so that the future of your generation can be assured. We sacrifice our today for your tomorrow. We are strong at heart, great in action, committed to our cause, and loyal to our nation. We are soldiers with great zeal and gallantry. We fight relentlessly to win, yet we continue to fight to conquer insurgency and terrorism. Just pray for us over here to conquer in victory so that we can return to our family, friends, and loved ones. To the fallen heroes, we pray they continue to live on while we fight to end in victory in the name of God. God bless our soldiers. Wow, that really touched me. Wherever you are, keep whatever you're doing, set it aside, and let's observe 1 minute silence for all our fallen heroes who have lost their lives trying to protect us wherever, in our country or outside the country. And may the souls of our fallen heroes rest in perfect peace. Amen. Armed Forces Remembrance Day is celebrated on 15th January every year. The event, celebrated on January 15th each year, also honors veterans of World War I and II, as well as the Nigerian Civil War. It is a day set aside for sober reflections on the significance of the armed forces to the country. Now, joining us to commemorate Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2023 is Air Vice Marshal Monday Riku Morgan, who is a retired Nigerian Air Force officer who headed the Defense Intelligence Agency of Nigeria from July 2015 to January 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Conversation, and I am Annabel Orji, will be your host. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. In case you just joined us, we are commemorating Armed Forces Remembrance Day today. And we have our guest. He is Air Vice Marshal Riku Monday Morgan, retired. He is a former Chief of Defense Intelligence, Nigeria Armed Forces. It's great to have you on the show again, sir.
Thank you very much.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And Happy New Year to you.
Awesome. All right, now we know that we actually talked about this last year during the Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2022. Now, some of the stories that we hear or read of those who had laid their lives in service to protect the lives and properties of their fellow citizens here in Nigeria, it's quite saddening and disheartening. And sometimes I just begin to wonder on my own, are we actually giving enough honor to these people, even though we know that accolades and all, they're never enough to bring back the lives of those who have been lost. But as someone who has been in those shoes for years, for decades, and survived it all to the glory of God, would you actually say that we are compensating or honoring or throwing enough accolades that is commensurate with what we have lost over time?
Thank you for understanding with the members of the armed forces, especially at a time like this. I'd like to draw us on memory lane, or let's say historical part of how the Armed Forces Remembrance Day came to be. Okay. Globally, it started in 1919 at the end of the First World War.
Okay. It
was called the Armistice Day. And it normally globally were celebrated on the 11th of November. The Commonwealth, the same, but then coming back home to Nigeria, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day became inaugurated during the General Yakubu Gowon's administration when the Nigerian Civil War ended in January 15, to commemorate the loss of those who brought us together as a united country, and for those that have either lost their limbs, those that survived the war, and those that have went through all the fatigue of uniting this country. That is how the Armed Forces Remembrance Day came to be on the 15th of January. It's a laudable program to celebrate those who are dead in the course of their duty, and those that are still serving, and those that make the entire nation to be able to sleep at night. The global best practices are in Europe and America because they respect their veterans. They respect the people that have fought, that shed blood for them to be what they are today.
Are you saying it's a different kettle of fish here in Nigeria?
Yes, I think the community, the entire nation called Nigeria, the Nigerians, do they really appreciate what the armed forces have been going through or what the contribution of the armed forces. When we come back to Africa, one of the best countries that practices or respect veterans or the military service is Egypt. And in the global firepower index, Egypt is the 15th most powerful military in the world. It respects their service personnel. It respects retired generals. In fact, their armed forces members, when they are retired into reserve. Just like what happened recently, if you know the case of Russia and Ukraine, when the war became serious to such an extent that Russia had to call back all the reservists. England have reservists. The entire Israel have reservists. It's only in Nigeria that we don't have a reservist system. However, on the question of the way the veterans are being treated, this present administration of General Muhammadu Buhari is the only administration since the Civil War that have come to recognize that the armed forces members are a great tool of unity in this country. It is in this period that pensions were enhanced. It is this period a lot of negotiations are going on for further enhancements of the welfare of the members of the armed forces, and including the retired military officers and even the families of the fallen heroes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It is quite sad to see that over time we've not been able to pay enough respect. So does it actually mean that all of this that we've been doing over time, we just pay lip service?
Yes, because I think what I expect from the National Assembly, there is this man who was in the National Assembly, Senator Ben Bruce. He made a very passionate plea for the members of the armed forces.
Okay.
I could recall, and that message is on the clip in Nigeria. That I expected the National Assembly to take a leap from that national plea, that civilians, the properties of Nigeria, lives and properties are being protected by these fighting forces, the armed forces and the police. They lose their lives in the line of duty. Their families are left to suffer. Their children cannot get education. And it is not far from our location here, the Egyptian system. The model is easy to copy. Like in the Egyptian system, pensions are not static because the economic situations are dynamic. And because the economic situations is dynamic, pensions in Egypt armed forces is reviewed. They call the procedure as COLA. That is the cost of living adjustment.
Okay.
So in this year, Egyptians' cost of living adjustment for pensioners was 5.9%. Like Nigeria right now, you could imagine a pensioner who was receiving, for example, 500,000 naira in 2018, when the dollar was exchanging for 350 thereabout. Today, the US dollar is exchanging for 750 to almost 800. So what happens to the retired man? So why can't the armed forces or the member or the retirees in Nigeria entirely have a system where salaries are adjusted in line with economic trend. And I think it is a unity of purpose. Let all Nigerians agree that for their own peaceful existence and development, a group of people are there fighting and dying on their behalf. In America, the serviceman is highly respected. Even in line of boarding flights or any public vehicles, they are a priority, including their family members. So these are global best practices that we must learn to adhere to.
Now, taking a cue from where you just landed, I recall that we had, when we had you over last time, this time last year, to commemorate the Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2022. So since then, till now, what exactly have changed? Are we still stuck at just commemorating our fallen heroes and the march past, all the glitz and glamour that you find that happens at this day, that comes with this day and all? Or have we actually moved to making proactive measures to cater to the families of these heroes and those that we are honoring? Or who exactly? Because I remember you keep saying that President Muhammadu Buhari has done a lot in terms of honoring these ex-servicemen and even the present service people. So who exactly then is hampering on the effort of the other?
But we are operating in a democracy. The things are not in the military fiat. I expect that because the executive is taking actions to enhancing the welfare of the veterans in this country, I expect our representatives in the National Assembly, just like I made a case of Senator Ben Bruce. He took the gauntlet and he said the military man, the police officer, the paramilitary that die in the line of duty must be respected. And those that have retired and have helped to build this nation must equally be seriously respected. But is that being done? The National Assembly, the representatives there, they represent us. We voted for them to go into that place to discuss about our welfare. So, while the executive, the president, is doing his own, we expect them to enact laws that will protect veterans. Because it is embarrassing that members of the veteran group themselves and protest on some issues that borders on welfare. We expect the National Assembly to take the gauntlet. They should take the step to helping the presidency, as they have seen that the president is taking the lead. Yeah.
So aside the National Assembly, I saw a particular place where some governors are seeking support for fallen heroes. So aside from them, what else, what kind of support can the average Nigerians actually bring forth?
It's a kind of agreement of purpose.
Okay.
Yes, if they agree, because their representatives are the ones in the National Assembly, and every state cannot make laws, independent laws for pension payments for its workers. There must be an umbrella of, because you know that most states don't generate enough resources to even fund their budgets. They look up to the federal system. So it is supposed to be a unison of purpose to address these issues. In most states, even the pensioners are not being properly taken care of, which is a sad event.
aside from most states, now I recall that we also talked about paying and taking care of the welfare of these veterans, which you stated very well that they're compensated, especially the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has done the military veterans really good. But then recently I still saw some protests from some veterans complaining of ill treatment amongst other things. So do you still maintain that stance? And if yes, who exactly, again, I will ask, is hampering the effort of the other? Just so the legion in both this national and the subnational level will know where to channel their angst to.
Anyway, those protests that came up were a mismanagement of presidential directive. The former handlers of the defense headquarters did not handle the issue properly. If the president gives an instruction that all veterans should have certain payments given to them, what we call the debarment allowance, because it is paid to such an extent that you, the professional soldier, you do not utilize your professional training against the state. Okay. So the president gave an approval that military officers who are separating should be paid some lump sum of money,
okay,
so that they are committed to national building even after retirement. And
okay,
if they go outside that track, they are liable for whatever offense they have committed. So unfortunately, the handlers in defense headquarters at that time did not handle the case well, and they identify a group of officers and paid and gave those allowances and excluded this other group. So that was what caused the problem. But as I talk to you, the issue is on high discussion, is being resolved. The Ministry of Defense has stepped in, and recently the Permanent Secretary of Defense, on behalf of Ministry of Defense, is working with a committee of the veterans group to resolving that issue. And I think the president is aware, and the president is putting a lot of pressure on the Ministry of Defense to ensure that problem is resolved.
Great, awesome. Now, because you talked about the debarment allowance, even though when we always hear that song while we're growing up, when they say, I remember when I was a soldier, but then they'll tell you that once a soldier, you're always a soldier, nothing else. So now, with all that song that they sang, now, is it actually possible that a soldier will decide not to give or put in his or her best at work or service just because he feels demoralized over anything at all, especially the lower cadets? Or is it possible that they could actually decide to transfer aggression on a civilian?
The issue of the transfer aggression, it depends on individual to individual, but collectively soldiers are trained to respect civilians. In ideal situation, the military barracks are supposed to be far away from the public environment. Yes, altercations between civilians and military from time to time happen, but it is not that it's a general issue to, I don't think, because the military ethics are very strict. When a soldier goes to the civil environment and misbehave, the punishment is very grievous. You always see that kind of misbehavior within the rank and file, not within the officer corps. A regular officer or an officer of the Federal Republic cannot, very difficult to mismanage a civilian who pays for his earnings, because it's the taxes of the civilians that sustain the military. Yeah.
Okay, so now also we talked about, you briefly walked us through your experience while in service last time you came.
Yeah.
But then tell us, what kind of feeling do you get when you lost a colleague, probably during a war or in the battlefield? Are there some kind of psychological effect or trauma that it actually leaves you with, just like we see in the movies? Because like in the movies, you're walking together with your colleagues, so it means you're watching each other's back. When one person goes down, it means it is your fault. So do you have that psychological trauma that works with you when you lost a colleague?
Yes, when you for our training from day one, you are trained to work together, suffer together, eat together, irrespective of your tribe, your religion.
Okay.
Because the bullets does not identify which tribe you are. And that is why in the military training, you were deliberately punished, even for the offense of
a colleague.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
So it creates comradeship. And when we are in the battlefield, you see a fallen colleague, it is the most depressing thing that will happen to you. And you feel like revenging on behalf of that lost colleague. It happens to all of us in all the exercises or operations that we participated, and we pray that the souls of those fallen heroes should rest in peace.
Amen.
And for us, we continue to pray for their families, and we continue to hold this country very firm, because without this country, we are nothing. Yes.
Clearly, we still have lots to unbundle from this conversation with Air Vice Marshal Riku Morgan, retired, and we will definitely get right onto it after this timeout. Please stay. With regards to securing lives and properties of citizens, Nigerians, and or tackling insecurity in Nigeria, most people say unceasingly that we always hear the activities carried out by the Defense Department, the Army, the Navy, more especially with regards to tackling crude oil thieves and bunkering. But then not much is heard of the Air Force. Is the Nigerian Air Force really this engaging?
The Nigerian Air Force has been engaging in this creditably well. For any operation to be successful, the land forces must enjoy close air support from the Nigerian Air Force.
Okay.
You see, one of the major components of air power is you have intelligence and awareness, you have air mobility, you can attack, and then if you are able to take control of the airspace, which of course the Nigerian Air Force has completely taken control of the airspace today.
In case you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you actually just joined us, you missed quite a lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. Our guest on the show today is Air Vice Marshal Riku Morgan, retired. He is the former chief of intelligence at the Nigerian Armed Forces, and we've actually been commemorating Nigerian Armed Forces Remembrance Day, rather. All right, so before we went on that break, we actually talked about quite a lot of things, but now let's divert a little bit and then talk about security. With regards to securing lives and properties of citizens, Nigerians, and or tackling insecurity in Nigeria, most people say unceasingly that we always hear the activities carried out by the Defense Department, the Army, the Navy, more especially with regards to tackling crude oil thieves and bunkering. But then not much is heard of the Air Force. Like, in fact, when anything about the military is mentioned, it is mostly the Chief of Defense Staff that you always quick to hear his name, and most people are always quick to reckon with. And according to Oxford Dictionary, here, okay, let me take it. It says that typically, air forces are responsible for gaining control of the air, carrying out strategic and tactical bombing missions, and providing support to land and naval forces, often in the form of aerial reconnaissance and close air support. Is the Nigerian Air Force really disengaging?
Thank you. This is my area, and I would like to tell you that for the wars and future wars, air power remains the deciding force.
Okay.
Now, let's discuss a little bit about air power in counterinsurgency.
Okay.
Basically, the traditional function of the air power is to hit in deep behind enemy forces, destroy their control and communication functionalities, impede the enemy's ability to deploy and sustain its forces. That is the traditional function of air power.
Okay.
And I tell you, the Nigerian Air Force has been engaging in this creditably well. For any operation to be successful, the land forces must enjoy close air support from the Nigerian Air Force.
Okay.
Now, in the initial time of the conflict of Boko Haram, you remember that the armed forces was going through a lot of process of re-equipping. And because those tools were not there, the Boko Haram seems to be more prepared and attacking the land forces. And recalling of air support were difficult challenges that we saw. But as you can see the trend right now, when new platforms have been brought into play, you see one of the major components of air power is you have intelligence and awareness, you have air mobility, you can attack, and then if you are able to take control of the airspace, which of course the Nigerian Air Force has completely taken control of the airspace today. But platforms must exist to execute the warfare. Right now, I'm sure you are aware about the induction of the Super Tucano, which is classified as one of the best close air support airplanes in the inventory of most modern air forces today. And that is an accolade to the president when he came on board. So the capability of the Super Tucano is such that they operate with precision weapons. That means that their targets can be identified and proper taken out of the bandits or Boko Haram enclaves can be achieved. Really? That means the collateral damage that other platforms created in the past are now eliminated. And moreover, if you are operating the Super Tucano, which has a standoff capability. When we talk about an airplane that has a standoff capability, it means that they are electronically calibrated in such a way that they identify targets, and as they approach the target, they could be able to shoot the target from between 8 to 10 kilometers away. So the pilot is the protection from any ground attack, like the anti-aircraft guns from the ground, is completely eliminated. So the survival rate of that airplane is near 100%. So, but you know, you cannot say 100% for any machine.
True.
So, and we're happy that the present guys that are in charge of the armed forces are doing very well.
There's a service chiefs.
Yes, they are doing very well. The Air Force is doing very well, given the support that is required, and I think what we need is a political will. Is a political will. Once the president does not have a mindset, if the president wants the war to be done with, because he has provided all the tools are there. We require more tools, more are going to come in. So essentially, the Air Force is doing a great job. The Air Force is doing a great job. And you know, the Air Force, there are very inherent advantages of air power. It has excessive speed, it has the reach, and it has the height. So once the airspace is completely in control, the land forces have easy maneuverability to achieving their aims.
All right, and because you talked about, sorry I had a butt in there, because you talked about the service chiefs, we'd like you to comment and at least denoise this fuzz that we keep hearing, people saying that the service chiefs, they are really not working together. You have some discrepancies between each other. Nigerians, most people, especially when you go to the newspaper stands, that's the kind of argument you keep hearing. So I'd like you to denoise that.
It's not with this present group of guys.
Okay.
The Chief of Defense Staff is a member of 34th course. The Chief of Air Staff is 35th regular course. The Chief of Naval Staff is 36th course, regular course. And the Chief of Army Staff is 37th regular course. And these are guys that train together, and this they have respect for the Chief of Defense Staff, and you can see there's a serious integration, because as once you are a fighting force, you cannot fight independently. In the past, there were no cohesion.
Oh, okay.
But this group are a solid group working together. And you can see the achievements that we are noticing in the battlefield right now.
All right, so now how do you think that we can watermark, let me use the media terminology, the significance of this day, Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and every 15th January, even though we know that, yes, like you talked about, it wasn't initially set aside, today wasn't, January 15th wasn't the initial day that it was set aside to commemorate Armed Forces Remembrance Day. So now how do we stamp the significance of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, bearing in mind, in the minds of Nigerians, now bearing in mind Nigeria's unity and her territorial integrity, which was what these fallen heroes actually fought to get?
I think the education is already there. Most young people in this country, through the National Youth Service Corps, have a basic orientation of what military is all about. And I think in the youth corps camps, they are also informed about the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, because every youth corps should know the significance of this day. In the real, if it's for me personally, I believe that Nigeria is right for proper military training for the youth.
Ah.
I could have suggested.
Starting from where?
From the national, from once you are drafted into the National Youth Service, it should be extended and should be a proper military training, because the orientation of military is very, very good. If you look at all the countries that operate a compulsory military training for their youth, you can see the difference in discipline in so many ways.
Sure.
Because discipline starts from dressing. Our youth, no matter their ages, don't get mature in time. A military personnel, if we were drafted from the university in your service year, let's say you go to proper military training for 1 year, you will know the do's and don'ts of societies. And then you will understand the concept of national unity and national security. You cannot be mismanaged. And we expect that if there's a national military training, then these same youth who have such orientation will go into the Nigerian police, Nigerian Navy, the armed forces, go to customs, immigration, and you will see high cohesiveness in national orientation. And this is the kind of suggestion I think most people should think about.
Oh, great.
Because the youth must be directed for proper leadership of the nation. In the military training, several curriculums could be added into their teachings so that they run away from corruption, they run away from things that are not good for national unity. Yes. So the Armed Forces Remembrance, they can only be planted in the brains of Nigerians through proper orientation, and let people talk about historical situations of the country. The crisis, military operations that have taken place even before independence, where our soldiers were drafted to the Commonwealth to fight the First World War, the Second World War, and several other operations, the United Nations operations that we have been part of.
All right.
Yes.
So now I actually recall, I think it was General Ibrahim Babangida retired, that actually said that the kind of corruption that you find in this day and time is far worse than what it was in their time. And I recall having an interview with retired General IBM. And then he also said the same thing, because we were talking about corruption, that corruption will be abated if they have some kind of military training. So if you have people like that saying such things, then do you still say that it means everybody, and corruption is actually institutionalized?
Exactly. You see, because you see, one of the things is that, who is your mentor? We grew up, like somebody like me, I grew up to identify certain military officers that I would like to be like.
Okay.
In the early 80s, most of us saw General Muhammadu Buhari as the sterling quality of a military officer of integrity. We saw General Ibrahim Babangida as a brilliant military officer. We in the Air Force, we had our military mentors who were great fighter pilots. We wanted to be like them. And those early leaders, if you look at their lifestyle and when they retired, there was nothing special about their finances. But the only mistake they did not create a situation for comfort for retired military officers.
Oh, okay.
If they had done that, there wouldn't be protests by veterans today concerning
welfare.
Yeah, because like I say, the best model for retired military officers is in Egypt. Is it housing? Is it health? Is it insurance? For even fallen heroes' families. And what resources that Egypt has. Thank God, the Ajakuta steel mill, rolling mill is coming back to spring. Because if we have industrial military complexes working, because in Egypt manufacture things for themselves, South Africa does. Okay, if we have military complexes, then we could manufacture things locally here.
Okay.
And the military will be enhanced, even when they leave the service, because they are trained in different fields. They have even jobs after retirement.
Okay.
Okay? And even when you talk about security, who are the best people? There is no portion of this country where there are no retired military officers or police.
Now, it looks like you were actually trying to touch on the next question I was going to ask.
Yeah, because
talking about tackling insecurity, what are your thoughts so far? Because now we had the Kuje prison attack, we had the Abuja train attack, we had the recent Edo train attack and all, and then quite a number of hydra-headed challenges with regards to insecurity. And some people have actually stated that retired military officers should be allowed to bring in their service or their knowledge to fighting insecurity. So do you actually agree to that? And are we even dotting the right T's and crossing the right I's?
Yes. You see, the truth of the matter is that when you look at security, it's everybody's business. However, a trained military or police officer who is in retirement, he sees through the lens when security is about to be breached. There is no portion of Nigeria today that there are no retired military personnel and police. So even when you talk about community policing, you have the resources already at every grassroots location. It is only for the governors to bring those people, identify those people, and create concentric layers of security networks within those areas. Now, recently, I heard about people talking about the security situation, internal security is very bad because the states don't have control over the police. Let them give them state police, all sort of. And I tell you that if you bring up the issue of state police, you are calling for anarchy in Nigeria. The Constitution gives too much power to a governor. So imagine the governor is given the opportunity to run a police. There would he will not have room for any opposition in that state. And he will mismanage his power.
Aren't there any other benefit that actually outweighs all of this?
I'm coming. The only way you can run or balkanize the armed forces, the police system today, if you balkanize them in line with the geopolitical zones.
Oh, okay.
For example, the North Central is Plateau, Federal Capital Territory, Niger, Benue, Nasarawa, Kogi, and Kwara. You have a regional police. Okay?
Okay.
The governors take turn to chair the regional security committee from time to time.
Okay.
Ex-military generals and police from that zone are created to have a security committee, a standing committee, a security committee to discuss about the state. First of all, you realize that the states don't have enough resources to even pay salaries. But what we can do here is that the so-called security fund that is mismanaged can be rearranged in a way that in the Constitution says that there's a fund called security fund from each state, but must be pulled together
To the region.
to the region.
Okay.
And no single man has the authority to approve money out of that fund for execution. So the committee is responsible to take decisions on the kind of equipment and security apparatus they are going to use to control their zone, their
own region.
Their own region.
Okay.
So you multiply, you multiply. I mean, I just create a regional police controlled by a DIG, and then the IG, they are responsible to the IG in the center, who is responsible to the president of the armed forces.
Okay.
If you do that, crime will reduce tremendously in the North Central. It will reduce tremendously in the Northeast. It will reduce tremendously in the Northwest. It will happen tremendously lower in the Southwest, South, and Southeast. That is the only way. But you cannot give power to one governor to handle the police. So this is the way out of this quagmire. And there are retired military personnel, there are retired police officers, customs, immigration that have intelligence training and
fine attitude and training.
Exactly. So this is the only way. So and intelligence does not gathering is not related to age. And they have to coordinate with all the traditional chiefs to ensure that they are incorporated into these committees, making sure that any infringement of security in any locality, the ward chief and those that are given the responsibility are challenged.
I was even going to ask how we can even bring the traditional leaders.
Yeah.
Or how about the religious leaders? Because most people listen to the traditional leader and religious leader, even more than the government.
I want us to leave the religious leaders, let them keep praying in their churches and the mosque about morality. Because what is happening today in Nigeria, when you talk about religious leadership, a religion, the hype of religious difference is caused by certain act of preaching. I joined the military at a time where nobody cared about religion. But today, it's like a flag. People want to be outwardly religious, But I believe that religion is in the mind, and even on the day of judgment, God knows those who sincerely worship him. Yeah.
All right. Now, before we finally let you go, let's divert a little bit and talk about the recent report where 46 detained Ivorian soldiers detained in Mali since July were finally pardoned by their neighboring country's junta. And the troops whose detention triggered bitter diplomatic row between the countries, where they were arrested in July 10th, I think the last year, 2022. Now, after arriving in the Malian capital, Bamako, that according to the public prosecutor, he stated at the time, he said, and quote, that they were convicted of an attack and of conspiracy against the government, and then seeking to undermine state security. Now, also seeing that the sentence came in, that sentence actually came in the roundup to the January 1st deadline set by leaders from the economic community of West African states, that's ECOWAS, for Mali to release the soldiers or face sanctions. What are your thoughts on this? Since we're commemorating Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and then at one time or the other, I'm sure that we've seen some things like this. Even what are the lessons that Nigeria can learn from this?
I think what happened there was a break in communication, because the Malian soldiers the Ivorian soldiers were said to be a kind of an attachment of security for some German UN operators.
Okay.
And if German United Nations operators are coming in to do whatever in that country, it was only right for the United Nations to inform the Ivorian government that such exercises is taking place, and that the Ivorians will escort these people.
Okay.
I think that was the clear case of a breakdown in communication. Because okay. I don't think they had any untoward intention to undermine the Malian government. Because the Mali is operating a military regime now. Of course, strange fellows with guns in their territory is something to suspect. So, when it comes to infringement of cross-border national security, they had to take their time to properly do investigation to ensure that, because if you look at it carefully, even the insurgency that is bothering us today, most the Western countries are foiling it. Like on the Sahel, all the crises that we have, you've seen mercenaries from France, from Canada, that are part of that. So Mali was not, it wasn't a stupid decision. But I think collectively, ECOWAS also did their own investigation and found that these guys were on legitimate missions, but not to subvert national security in that country.
Thank you so much for your time with us. It's been a wonderful time having this conversation. Air Vice Marshal Riku Morgan, it's been a wonderful time having this talk with you.
Thank you very much.
Great. And happy Armed Forces Remembrance Day to you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, my badge, I think, dropped en route when I was coming in.
Oh, wow.
I'll get another one.
Great.
Thank you very much.
All right, viewers, that's all we can take today. You've heard it all. We have been chatting with Air Vice Marshal Monday Riku Morgan, retired. He is former Chief of Defense Intelligence, Nigeria Armed Forces. It's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. Take out time to appreciate, to honor those who have actually laid down their lives to protect you and I. While you were sleeping, they were all in service trying to protect us. Take our time to appreciate them. If you're not going to say good words to them, even the fallen heroes and those that are in service at the moment, don't say anything. I will see you again next time. Keep watching The Conversation, because you never know who my next guest will be and what my next topic will be all about. Till I come your way again from the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabel Orji. God bless you and yours, and God bless Nigeria.